Unshelling Medicine Podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Today, I have the pleasure of having Michelle Davies with me today. So Michelle is going to help us talk about brain fog and how to deal with that. How do we heal ourselves from it? How do we manage it? Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank
I
you.
absolutely love it. Thank you for being here. So, Michelle, tell our audience about you, what you've done, and, the clarity that we so desperately need out of, the brain fog that is human existence.
Yes. So I have been in natural therapy for 27 years, practicing osteopathy. And so I graduated in 1997, having studied 4 years as a degree in osteopathy. And I've published 2 books in that time. The first book was called Miracle Worker, and the second book, which I thought we could talk about this evening or this afternoon for you maybe on this show, because that's called Mental Clarity. And we do have a mental health crisis because one person dies by suicide every 40 seconds and 32 people are diagnosed with mental illness every second. So one of the reasons for publishing this book was to be able to give hope and faith and trust in people's bodies that they can do things that could help their brain, and so they could feel that they are in charge of their mental health and there are things that they could do.
So, Michelle, in your opinion, why do you think we have such a crisis recently? And unfortunately, it does not matter how old, right? So it affects, when we're talking about suicide, it affects people of all ages. Why is that such a crisis recently?
I'm not sure if it is more of a crisis recently or that it's actually just spoken about perhaps more.
Okay.
I have been treating patients in my practice with depression, anxiety, suicide ideation for a long time. So I don't necessarily know if it's something that's more so now. I think it's hard to tell, isn't it?
It is.
But the area of work I work in, it isn't really discussed very much. I'm not sure that people are aware of that, which is another reason for publishing the book. Because in osteopathy, we're taught craniosacral osteopathy as part of the training. And that enables us to be able to treat conditions of the brain. So we can improve the brain health because we access the fluid which bathes the brain, and we can help the brain to detox. And I'm not aware that people with mental illness are aware of that there is actually a hands-on healing treatment that is very effective for depression and anxiety. I think if more people knew about it, then perhaps more people can be saved. I've certainly been presented with many patients that have been told that there isn't anything more that can be done.
Right.
They are already on maximum medications. They've been hospitalized and still they're self-harming and they're considering suicide on a regular basis. But then they have some treatments and maybe they do some biofrequency healing work remotely and they're getting their life back, or they've improved their condition and they're feeling significantly better. And so I think there need to be perhaps more people like myself working with more patients with mental illness, because it is treatable. I mean, from my point of view, from the work that I'm doing and the success that I get, it is treatable. And I don't think people realize that, because I think they think perhaps that they can't be helped.
most people don't realize that. And when we're talking about depression and anxiety, it is the feeling of doom and gloom, and that the end of it all, there's no light seen, light of rescue. So why do you think in your practice, or at least in your training, it is not talked about a lot how your training can be beneficial, with the manipulation of that cerebrospinal fluid that bathes the brain as a potential treatment or intervention for depression and anxiety? Is there a reason behind that? Because in the field of healthcare, right, everything is about evidence-based practice. Is it because there's not enough studies or enough approval, or why is it so gate kept?
Yeah, so I would say that number one, it doesn't suit the pharmaceutical model because we don't prescribe medication and we take people off drugs and we get their body healing itself. So that's not good business for Big Pharma and for the authorities. And so that's one of the issues. And you're correct in saying that about, it's evidence-based medicine. And we don't have that evidence base because there isn't the funding. And then the problem is, even if there was the funding, is the truth going to be printed anyway? Because they don't necessarily want to know the truth.
Right.
Because again, it's not profitable.
It's not profitable.
So
yeah.
I think probably it comes down to that. And most of us work in private practice. And so it would be very difficult for us to be able to do the research.
So that brings another problem to light, right? Because the practices that support pharmaceutical prescription are covered by insurance. However, holistic private practice like yourself are not necessarily covered by insurance or benefit. So the participants will have to pay out of pocket. Is that true of your practice?
It is, yeah. And the other problem that we have as well is that osteopaths certainly are restricted to what they can advertise that they treat and what they can help. I'm not an osteopath anymore. I don't have the title, so I am not restricted, so I can talk on this show freely because I'm not censored anymore. I haven't got duct tape across my lips, but I have had for years. I haven't been able to speak my truth, and I haven't been able to get the message out there. So osteopaths are limited by a list of conditions that they say they can treat. And certainly anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, they're not on the list. So I am only saying what I'm able to say now because I don't have a regulator saying to me, you can't say that, you can't do this. So I have a sense of freedom now. I can practice in a way that I've always practiced, but I'm able to speak about what I do without the backlash. And unfortunately, a lot of the osteopaths who do craniosacral osteopathy, they will be regulated by the regulator. And so they wouldn't be able to speak as freely as I am speaking now.
That is really common in our industry, and the line items have taken the place of care, right? Healthcare is now health line item or health profit. And it's a frustration that I have seen quite a bit, where practitioners, well-meaning practitioners in the modern healthcare system, are not able to speak freely or showcase the things that they've been able to do or support their patient in the conventional medicine arena that has been successful. That is why we have a lot of distrust today in healthcare when it comes to doctor-patient relationship, where people are, taking on their treatment, in secret, right? And not communicating to their primary practitioners. Some of these things are leading to people either being boxed as non-compliant or they're having fatal or near fatal interactions because of integrative treatment. So is there a way that we can all work together? Because I believe that anybody who gets into the space to help somebody in healthcare got in with the right reason to help.
Yeah,
Right. Right. That we all had that in mind getting into this space.
definitely.
So is there a way that we can all collaboratively still work in that care aspect of things without jeopardizing our own livelihood? Because that's what it comes down to. People get blackballed, right? Is there a way around it in your experience and, with your dream and expectation?
I think it isn't the people on the ground where the problem lies. It's the authority dictating above and then down. Certainly, all of us just want to help people, don't we, to get better and improve their lives. But yeah, and it's unfortunate, really, that it's the authorities above us that give us the orders. And I've had to leave my profession because for my personal integrity, I can serve more patients without my title than I can serve with it. So I think it ends with osteopaths leaving the register. So you find then that there's another group of professional people then that practice without a title, because actually they have to choose between serving the regulator and serving the patient. And in my case, I'm serving God. So I had to choose between serving God or serving the regulator.
Yeah.
And I came to the point which I couldn't do both anymore, because actually I was lying to the public. I was deceiving the public. So I just decided that I would change my path, even though I was an osteopath from the age of 22.
Wow.
And I decided to be an osteopath when I was 13.
Wow.
So my whole life was dedicated to being an osteopath. But unfortunately, that's my story. And I think it's a story of many osteopaths as well that actually just practice without a title anymore.
Wow.
And osteopathy's been around actually since 1874. It's a really long time. We have a very long history of being around. But there would be a lot more of us on the register if we were free to practice as we want to, because we all just want people to get better.
Right.
We're healers, aren't we? All of us that are working with patients, we want to invoke a healing response. So it has to change at the top, I think.
So with mental clarity, a person seeking mental clarity, and, as you've so eloquently stated, a lot of osteopaths are no longer on the registry or maintaining their licenses because of the restrictions that comes with it, and they practice outside of being under a body. If a person is seeking to get help, how can they find those osteopaths who are actually in their crafts and looking to help? Because there's a registry where if I go in to find an osteopath under the licensure in my state, in my geographical area, I'll get a list, right? So if a person is no longer on the registry, what is that connection? What is that community like? How do I seek that treatment from somebody that I know my best interest is foremost? Not that the others that are on the registry are not, but, if I want to get treated outside of the watching eyes in a sense.
Yeah. So most of that really is by word of mouth rather than actually being a particular group.
Got it.
There is something in the background that's being worked on currently. I'm within a group, but it hasn't quite reached that point where it's available for the world. But it's being worked upon for that reason, really, because people want to have freedom of choice. They want to be able to choose who they go to consult for health conditions, particularly when it comes to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we've said before, it's just such a crisis. So,
and still carries a lot of stigma, right? Still carries a lot of stigma where people are still unsure or concerned about how society would perceive them if they admit to what goes on in their head or what goes on in general.
Really interesting to raise that point, because most of the patients, if not all of the patients I treat with a mental ill health problem, they actually have got that because of their birth or because they've had a concussion, they've had an injury to their head, or they're living a very stressful life, but they've had trauma, emotional trauma or physical trauma. And when they actually realize that it's not their fault, so they have this depression they're living with and self-harm, they start to understand that, oh, it could be my birth that caused me to be this way. Well, I didn't have any part to play in that. It's not my fault then. And so I would say all of the patients I'm treating, there is actually a physical reason for the mental health issue. That's very reassuring, certainly for patients I treat, because then they appreciate it, that they are suffering, but it's not because of their mental state in a way. It's because something physical has happened to the head. It's affected the brain because the fluid around the brain isn't flowing. So the fluid doesn't take the toxins away. The toxins are sitting in the brain and it causes toxic thoughts. And toxic thoughts lead to toxic actions. And toxic actions lead to toxic habits. And then they can start to appreciate it's not their fault. There's actually a reason, and they can start healing because of that. They've got an answer, because a lot of patients with mental illness, they're seeking for an answer. They don't understand why are they in this position? Because they've got family, they've got friends, they make connections with people. They could be very successful at work as well. And they have a lot of love, they do a lot of good things, and they're still suffering. And it's really hard for them to understand that. But then when they see, wow, it's because I had a concussion when I was 6. I hit my head on a trampoline. Are you telling me that that's the reason that I've got this mental illness now? Yes, it's very possible that it's that, or it's because you underwent a really traumatic delivery into the world. You were delivered by forceps or Von-2s, or you were born too quick or too slow, or your shoulder got stuck. But something actually happened to you which affected the way that your brain wasn't detoxing. This is part of the chapter within my book where I talk about the anatomy of the brain, and then how if you hurt part of the brain, how that makes you unwell, how it makes you actually sick. So if you can look after your brain by eating the right foods, drinking enough water, going to sleep at a reasonable time, going into a deep sleep, exercising, brain exercises and prayers, breathing. So then you can start to heal the brain, and then your mood starts to shift. And plus you've got reassurance, because you also know then that you're healing a part of you that you didn't realize actually needed healing.
Right. That's so beautiful to listen to you, go through these things, because these are things that people don't naturally think about. Who thinks about the trauma they experience at birth? I mean, that's day one trauma, right? And at a point where you were not even aware, as a thinking and rationalizing or a rational thinking adult that it rolled out eventually, right? It's so incredible how much we have discovered about the human body and the mind-body connection. And it's so interesting and so mind-blowing to, talk to people who have worked in this, arena. So I have a question. It sounds very physical when we're talking about manipulating the cervical spine to, move that cerebrospinal fluid. So for anybody who's listening, if you don't understand what cerebrospinal fluid is, Michelle is going to explain that, because I don't want that to come from me. It sounds very physical, right? And then the other things that you have to do, like, praying, meditating, sleeping well, eating, and just having other habits. That is like a lifestyle maintenance. Can you walk us through the process of, cerebrospinal fluid and, the physical manipulation of it?
Yes, so the cerebrospinal fluid is a fluid that all of us have got, and it bathes the brain, the spinal cord, and all of the nerves. And it's meant to flow around the body at a certain rate and rhythm and amplitude. And we get sick when that isn't flowing at that correct rate. So somebody like myself can place my hands on the person's cranium, the head, the skull bones, or at the pelvis, the lower back, the sacrum area. And we're taught to be able to feel this flow of fluid. And then with our hands, with that hands-on contact, we can aid the flow of it. So it could be that we feel a restriction or a tightness or a torsion, a twisting. And with our hands, we're able to help the body recorrect that. So then it starts to flow in an area that hasn't been flowing. And we're taught this from day one of the osteopathy training, because everything that we do is about hands-on feeling things. So it's a skill. It's like playing an instrument. Right. And I don't play an instrument. I'd find that really difficult to start playing the piano. But like with the osteopathy, it's the same thing. It's a skill that then we've been able to learn how to do that. Right. So yes, we access it and we're able to go into it and help it to flow better, which then can resolve somebody's suffering, which could be anything really from head to toe. Could be to do even with chronic fatigue or recurrent illnesses, and even things like asthma or chest infections. So generally, the body structure is so important for for every function. That's one of our principles. Structure governs function. So if you could put the structure right as it's designed to be, because it's designed to flow, if you put that right, then the symptoms start to get better, because we have an innate ability for the body to heal itself, to self-regulate and self-heal, self-repair. But we get stuck on our own because of the traumas and the injuries, and it's difficult then for us to do the self-healing. Yeah. So that's the flow of the fluid. The other interesting side of it, which is more spiritual, I would term this the Christ oil, the sacred secretion, and the breath of life. And it's interesting, some patients will say that they feel like they're suffocating. And I say, yes, I understand that, because this is your breath of life that's actually blocked, or it's not flowing. It feels your vitality isn't there. And it makes sense to them why they're feeling like they're suffocating, or they're drowning, some patients say as well. So we term it the sacred secretion, the Christ oil, or the breath of life, because it's the spiritual part of us. And we are spiritual beings. A lot of people I know find that it's difficult to accept, but we're physical, mental, emotional, spiritual beings. And there is this spiritual aspect within every one of us. Yes. And that's our connection to our creator, connection to nature, connection to each other. Because the other thing about this, if there's a blockage, we don't communicate very well. So it's a connection with everything. And so some people have the treatment because they want better connection. They want a better spiritual life, not just the mental or the physical symptoms that they've got, but they want to improve spiritually, want to improve their connection with their creator. And yes, if you're Christian, then you would term it the Christ oil, because we believe that Christ is living within us. Right. And if Christ is flowing within you, generally you don't have anything wrong with you. You're well and you're healthy and you're able, because you have that flow. So we can honor the Christ oil. So there are other ways of improving it. I've talked in my book about nutrition, as we've said before, and sleep and water, hydration. But the other aspect is that we could honor the Christ oil. So we could live by acts of kindness. We can live with gratitude. We can not be quick to anger. Yeah. And we can love one another, and not to be lustful or gluttonous. And if we live more of a spiritual existence there with gratitude and love and kindness, then that also helps to stimulate that flow within us and helps unblock areas that we've got blockages, which then we can have more vitality. We can think clearer. We've got more mental clarity.
Right. It's so interesting and so awesome. Just full disclosure, when I looked at your profile, and my favorite picture of you was a picture you were hugging a tree. I absolutely loved that picture. Forget everything else. Just that picture, just like, oh my God, yes, this is my person. Um, our connection to nature is so important. I can't stress that when you said that. I'm like, yes, I can't wait to tell her. So that was my absolute favorite picture of you.
I love that. That's so good. Thank you for sharing. That's lovely to receive that from you.
You've done a lot of great things. You showed a lot of great things. That one just like, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's my person. So everything sounds very much physical in person. So if somebody's listening to us, Michelle, and they're very interested in, working with you, having you guide them through their journey of healing themselves, or basically starting something to re-energize themselves, right? How can they do that if, you are a practitioner of so many years, and you know the nuances, you know what to listen for, you know how to unplug certain channels within a person to, revive them and, bring back that life into them. So how can a person find you, work with you, or find somebody in the immediate geographical area who may still be on the registry or on the board, but they do want to work with you? How is that possible?
So I use biofrequency healing. I use AO scan technology,
Okay.
which is from America. And I'm able to use that remotely
Okay.
to be able to help people help heal themselves. And I have an amazing testimonial to share with the listeners. It won't take me long, but it's just incredible. I think you'll be blown away by this one because it was just purely biofrequency music. And I was using it on someone who was in hospital who'd had a brain hemorrhage. And actually, the patient was the daughter, and the mother was in hospital, and she just had a stroke.
Okay.
She was given 72 hours to live. And if she did survive the 72 hours, then she would never speak again. She wouldn't walk again. She would just live, well, not really live, just exist. So I was sending the biofrequency via the daughter because it analyzes your voice. So remotely, I take a 15-second recording of the person's voice, and you use a photograph of them, use their height and their weight. And the technology then creates music for you to listen to, which helps to balance your emotions and helps you to heal. So the daughter was going into hospital every day, playing the music through headphones to the mother. The voice recording that I could get from her was literally a grunt. That was all she could say at the beginning. It was just a noise. And every week or every number of days, we would do another voice recording. And it was incredible for me to be part of that journey because I could hear the more grunts, then it became a word, and it became a sentence. And after 111 days, she walked out of hospital.
Oh my goodness.
She left hospital. She's eating fully, properly. She's talking fully, and she walked out 111 days later. Now that is the power of prayer and biofrequency healing. And I use biofrequency with patients that can't fly to me. I do have patients that fly from Europe, but some of them are too elderly or they're too infirm. And so I send them the biofrequency healing, and I get a lot of good reports. So I use it every day. I know it works. So the biofrequency is there for people to access. And I do remote consultations online because I can diagnose a lot of things just like we're speaking now and start a process because I could give patients exercises and advice and talk to them and address the root cause of the problem by speaking to them, because we've all got a root cause of the suffering. So it's about finding that. So I do that remotely as well. I've got a couple of websites that your listeners could access. And one of them is braincareexpert.com. And the other one is smartersitting.com. That one is about improving someone's posture at their workplace. So many people don't sit correctly and have poor energy and pain. That affects their clarity just because they're using a laptop all day, and they should actually set up efficiently, and then they're not. So I've got that product as well. And I'm offering your listeners a free PDF copy of my book. So the book Mental Clarity, which I published just recently, I'm going to give your listeners a free PDF copy of this. And that's at the braincareexpert.com.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Then I've got another free gift, which is helping people set their workstation up. And that's a free training video. And that's through smartersitting.com.
I can use that one. I can use everything discussed. Please, everybody who's listening, it's free. Okay, take advantage of it. You never know. You just never know. The reason why we're doing this, both of us, we had a little discussion before jumping on, is because we really want to help people. People do seek difference in their lives, but they don't know where to turn. So if this resonates with you, please go in, look at the good work. Like, her website is beautiful. So we're going to include everything, Michelle, in the show notes today. So please check it out, check her out, reach out, ask questions, learn something if you can, and please take advantage of the free gifts. I know I am going to. So do what you can for yourself. We believe that our bodies can heal. We believe that by taking care of our bodies, it can do what it can to keep us alive for a long time. So thank you so much, Michelle, for being here. Is there anything you want to leave our listeners with?
I just want to say thank you for this time, because if I can just improve one person's life by being on this call with you, then for me, that's beautiful. That's all I want to do, is for more people to be healed and to heal themselves. So if I could just influence one person, I'd be very, very happy.
Oh my goodness. That's a page right out of my own book. With just one person, and whoever you are, exactly. We're here. Please listen. And there's certain things that I would like to talk to you more, Michelle. So we'll find time in a very busy schedule to set something else up. But the mental clarity thing is very important. Yes, we're talking about mental health more. And I want to encourage everybody, regardless of age, gender, if you're experiencing something, say something. There's a lot of support out there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michelle, for being here.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine Podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.